5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start. The present case concerns an appeal against the judgment delivered by the lower court dismissing the petition filed by the appellant challenging the validity of an administrative order. The appellant contended that the order was passed without adhering to the principles of natural justice and was thus liable to be set aside. It was argued that the appellant was not given a reasonable opportunity to be heard before the order was passed, which resulted in a violation of fundamental procedural safeguards. The appellant further submitted that the order was arbitrary, unreasonable, and lacked any application of mind. On the other hand, the respondent defended the order, stating that all procedural requirements had been complied with and the appellant had been provided adequate notice and chance to present his case. The respondent emphasized that the order was passed after careful consideration of the relevant facts and circumstances and was fully justified on the grounds stated therein. It was also submitted that the appellant had failed to produce any material evidence to substantiate the allegations of procedural irregularity. The court commenced its examination by addressing the scope of judicial review of administrative actions. It was reiterated that while courts must not interfere with administrative decisions lightly, they are duty-bound to ensure that such decisions are taken fairly and in accordance with the law. The court referred to the well-established principle that any administrative order affecting the rights of individuals must observe the fundamental requirements of fairness, including the right to be heard and the right to reasoned decisions. Upon reviewing the record, the court noted that the appellant had indeed received a notice regarding the proposed order, but the timing and manner of communication were questionable. The appellant claimed that the notice was issued at a very late stage, allowing insufficient time to prepare and present a meaningful response. The respondent countered this claim by pointing to the service of notice as per established procedure. The court held that adequacy of notice is a question of fact and must be assessed in the context of the circumstances. The court further examined whether the appellant was given a proper opportunity to be heard. It was observed that the appellant had submitted written representations, but the respondent's decision did not reflect any consideration of those submissions. The absence of any reference to the appellant's contentions in the order suggested that the decision was taken without due deliberation. The court emphasized that the right to be heard implies not only receiving a chance to make representations but also requires that those representations be considered genuinely. Regarding the reasonableness of the order, the court analyzed the grounds stated therein. The respondent's order primarily relied on allegations of non-compliance by the appellant with certain procedural requirements. However, the court found that the order lacked clarity and was vague in its reasoning. It did not specify the exact nature of the alleged non-compliance, nor did it assess the impact of such non-compliance on the overall case. The court observed that an administrative order, devoid of clear and intelligible reasons, is liable to be struck down. The appellant also challenged the factual basis of the order, contending that the findings were based on incomplete or incorrect information. The court reviewed the evidence and noted discrepancies in the respondent's account. Important documents relied upon by the respondent were either missing from the record or had not been properly verified. The court underscored that findings of fact must be supported by adequate and reliable evidence, failing which they cannot sustain an order adversely affecting rights. Turning to the issue of proportionality, the court considered whether the consequences imposed on the appellant by the order were just and fair. It was noted that the order resulted in significant detriment to the appellant's professional and personal interests. The court opined that administrative action must balance the need for regulatory compliance with the potential hardship caused. Where less severe measures are available, the principle of proportionality requires that they be preferred over draconian penalties. The respondent submitted that the order was issued in public interest and to uphold the integrity of the administrative system. The court acknowledged the importance of maintaining discipline and adherence to regulations. However, it stressed that public interest cannot justify arbitrary or unfair treatment of individuals. The rule of law demands that administrative authorities act within their powers and observe procedural fairness at all times. The court also touched upon the doctrine of legitimate expectation, observing that the appellant had a reasonable expectation that any adverse decision would be preceded by a fair hearing and clear communication of the charges. Failure to meet these expectations amounted to breach of natural justice and warranted intervention by the court. Having considered all aspects, the court concluded that the impugned order was passed without due regard to principles of natural justice, lacked adequate reasoning, and was based on incomplete factual findings. Consequently, the order was held to be arbitrary and legally unsustainable. The court set aside the order and remitted the matter back to the authority for fresh consideration in accordance with law. The court directed that during the reconsideration, the appellant must be given a reasonable opportunity to present his case in person or through authorized representatives. The authority was also instructed to provide a detailed and reasoned order after considering all relevant materials and submissions. The court cautioned the authority to adhere strictly to the principles of fairness and transparency to prevent further litigation. In conclusion, the court reiterated that administrative authorities must exercise their powers judiciously and in conformity with the standards of natural justice. The safeguarding of individual rights against arbitrary action is a cornerstone of the legal system. Judicial oversight ensures that such standards are maintained, thereby fostering trust in public administration and the rule of law. It further emphasized that fairness and transparency are not mere procedural formalities but essential elements that uphold the dignity of the individual and maintain public confidence in the justice delivery system. Stop.